Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hi, I'm Phil Bliss, founder and CEO of Canada's podcast, coming to you today from Toronto. Max Braden is the founder and president of CPOS from Ottawa, Ontario. CPOS is a technology company that powers small business with tools to compete effectively with big businesses. CPOS empowers small businesses with technology that removes friction from the process of operating and growing their business. Max is a young entrepreneur who's been running full force with a vision to help small businesses succeed, and he's been doing that for over 10 years. His experience and drive are kind of inspiring to the people around him, and, he has a very positive impact on entrepreneurs anywhere who are facing similar challenges. So let's meet Max. So Max, welcome to Canada's podcast. Great to meet you. Let's get going by, you telling us all a bit about who Max is, what you do, and how you got here, if you like, your story, just a quick 5 minute of that summary of who you are, basically.
Sure, Phil. Yeah, I started my entrepreneurial journey, say back in 2011. So I was going to Ottawa U. I was in second year psychology, and I wasn't really lining up with what I was taking. I wasn't really interested in school. I didn't really know what I wanted. I just knew that I wanted some sense of freedom. So I dropped out of school and got into sales. I got into door-to-door sales, and I did a couple different door-to-door sales jobs. I worked for a painting company, then I started my own door-to-door painting company. I worked for Enbridge Gas, delivering like environmentally friendly shower heads. And then I found some traction doing door-to-door HVAC sales in 2011 before there was regulation around it. So it's basically selling ACs, furnaces, hot water tank rentals, following basically it's a privatization a few years prior between Direct Energy and Enbridge. So anyways, found some success, grew a basically door-to-door sales team in that business when I was 20. And that industry started to face more regulation. So I saw an opportunity in the payment processing industry. So I left HVAC, got into payment processing, took my sales team. I'm like, hey guys, we're going to go sell debit and credit machines now, because that industry had recently been deregulated. The banks had previously controlled it. The way it worked as a small business owner, you would basically have to go to your major bank to accept credit or debit payments from your customers. So we were like a non-bank alternative, like, hey, go to your bank and pay 3%, or go to us, the little guys, the alternative, and pay 2%. So took my sales team, and we were like B2B door knocking. That's really what we did. Really a direct sales, relationship-based approach, building sales teams within local business communities and really building that, face-to-face relationship. So built the business started working for this payment processor. They got acquired a couple of years ago. So I started CPOS in 2014, basically just to replace what we were already doing, which is, selling payment processing to small businesses, and grew that business over the last 10 years. So we kind of started for 6 years. We were focused on that payment processing. So helping businesses save money on credit card fees compared to the banks. The last 4 years, we've really evolved into more of a SaaS company. So the problem we're trying to solve now is really helping small businesses that are using anywhere from like 3 to 5 different SaaS solutions to run their business. So restaurants, salons, contractors, to working with us and just using one singular solution. So that's basically been the evolution of my journey.
So, you dropped out of school because you knew it wasn't what you wanted. Are you entrepreneurs kind of wired differently than other people? I mean, you've been doing this for a decade now, so obviously, you found your calling. Right? Let's say,
right.
Are you different than other people?
Um, I would say, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a lot of peer groups I was part of. I was younger, have found harder to relate as I've gone deeper down this entrepreneurial path,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just, yeah, it's really just a different day to day focus or desire, and different goals and different priorities. So, um, yeah, it's been a little bit of a challenge actually, just to, one sense being an entrepreneur. And if you have a team, right, you're always surrounded by people, but it's at the same time, in a sense, very lonely, because even though you're working with your team, the real problems that you're facing, you can't really tell anyone about, or talk to anyone about. And if you talk to your team about it, you're going to think the business is on fire. So you have to kind of, you have to
That's right.
act like everything's okay, even if it's not. So you have to be the calm one that everyone looks to, like the rock of the team. I like to think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a tough question, but
Yeah.
so you've built a solid, let's call it a SaaS business over the last decade. What are the top three reasons for your success? Because that's a hell of an achievement, so early in your career, if you like.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, I mean, I think that I could chalk it up to three things. I think first thing that comes to mind is focus. I think that, trying to be the jack of all trades, or the master of none analogy, I think about all the time, trying to please everyone. And then at the end of the day, please no one. So just figuring out problem you want to solve, that you're passionate about, you really believe in, and then just doing that one thing really, really, really good, and not getting distracted, because there's always, if the opportunities align with that one thing, sure, but there's so many opportunities that just distract you from your vision. So I think focus. I would say the second thing would be mental stability, emotional stability, or mental stability. As much as I've worked on, my mindset and my personal well-being, every time I put more focus into that, it just leads to more business success. So just being able to remain calm in that example of the fire situation. I mean, there's fires every day in running a business. So especially a business that you're trying to grow. So remaining calm and finding ways to balance your mind so that you can make rational decisions despite very, things that could be quite emotional. And then I think the third thing would just be building a solid team, having a great team, and finding people. It's funny because I've kind of over the years changed my perspective a bit about this. I mean, you definitely want smart, capable people. I think a lot of, earlier in my journey, I was like, I got to be the best in a certain skill set. And that's still a great asset to have. But I look more now for, are they a true believer? So do they believe in our company's core values, and do they believe in the mission that we're on? And that's the first thing. Like that, if they don't check that, like that's the first box. And I would take someone that is I call them a true believer. So a true believer in our values and our mission over, but doesn't have quite the skills. Maybe we can just train up their skills over someone that's kind of iffy on their values and their alignment with our values, but they're like an A player, and they, have done it before in terms of the skills. So that's mindset shift I've had, especially over the last couple of years. I've just been, just call it burned a couple of times, or just whatever. I've just learned what I like to look for. So
stay ahead of the game with our expert tips and strategies that will help your business thrive in a digital era. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So, what's best about being an entrepreneur? I mean, you talked about the loneliness aspect of it in some ways, but what's the best part of being an entrepreneur?
stay the freedom to create. Because if you can And I think that's something that I've try to focus more and more time on. Like my highest value time is really just sitting there with that, without any of the day-to-day mundane tasks, and just sitting there and strategizing and thinking and trying to, create strategies to get us down our path. So I think like the freedom to create and just the freedom to solve the problems. And yeah, I think that's definitely the thing that comes to mind.
I mean, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? You've had a heck of a good 10-year push. What's the next 5 years for you?
Yeah. I think, a lot of entrepreneurs have this, they're kind of serial entrepreneurs. They want to solve a problem and then get to the next problem and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it like that. I mean, I think that the problem that we're trying to solve is a big problem, and I'd like to stay in this role and stay and grow this company. We hit our 10-year birthday 6 months ago. I'd love to hit our 20-year birthday, our 30-year birthday, and turn this into a long-term company. So I'm not looking to do something else. I'm looking to basically grow this and keep doing what I'm doing at scale.
That's really, I like that. What's the greatest challenge you faced in growing the business to date that you think if you talk about it, people can learn from that?
I think it comes down to people, like aligning with the right people. I think that, so, back to the hiring, what to look for and finding people that align with the core values and hiring based on that, but also, so hiring the right people enthusiastically, but also cutting the wrong people quickly. So I've had people that I knew it wasn't the right fit for mutually, and I just didn't pull the trigger, kept them around because for whatever reason, it was easier. And that's just all it's done is hold the business back. So I think, having the right team and making those decisions, they should be thoughtful decisions, but they should be made quickly as well.
That's in the same mode. You've hit a lot of challenges on the way in the last decade. Do you have a process to handle those? I mean, how do you get over the wall, kind of thing?
Yeah. So we run the business on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is a framework developed by Gino Wickman. So it's kind of a template to run the business, and there's a meeting format, meeting cadence. So there's a tool I like. It's called the People Analyzer, which is basically a model that frames, okay, are they first the right person? And the right person basically means, do they fit your core values? And it's either a yes, a no, or a neutral. And you create your own ranking system and then rank. It can be a candidate that you're interviewing. It can be someone that you're concerned about on the team that you might want to let off the team, or it can be even a promotion. So really assessing any person in the organization that you want to bring on or promote or let go. So you check the boxes on the values, and then you go to the next part is, are they in the right seat? And the right seat assessment is called GWC. So do they get the seat? So do they understand what the job is? And I've had that happen before. It's kind of funny where people just don't actually understand what the job they're supposed to do. Like they weren't given clear direction. They don't understand the scope. So they get the job, and then W is, do they want the job? And C is, are they capable of doing the job? So they have to check all the boxes basically, but there's no perfect formula. It's just, I find that, frameworks or playbooks on this type of thing really, it helps to look at things objectively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've been here for 10 years. Is there something, that you've learned over the last 10 years that you wish you'd known at the beginning, that maybe, that you think someone might find interesting and maybe applicable to their situation?
I would say think delegation faster. So as the team's grown, I've moved towards achieving our goals, I've realized over time what I've had to delegate. I think that if I started from scratch, I would, delegate a lot of responsibility immediately. So as soon as the business has enough profit to afford staff to basically delegate, and really just, you're buying back your time essentially. And a lot of entrepreneurs get caught in this kind of hamster wheel of, working in the business instead of on the business. And they become, basically like victims to their business, where they're doing these tasks that really should be outsourced. So as a business owner, what's your time worth? Right. And if you're growing the business, your time could be worth $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour, or much, much, much more. And if you're doing admin tasks that could be delegated at $20 an hour, then you're actually hurting the business. So I think and a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think there's even this, it's more of a cultural thing of, there's this mindset of, well, you just got to work harder. You got to do the boring work. You got to do the gritty work. You got to stay, work late hours. And it's like, you can do all that, but do high value tasks. So delegate the lower level tasks to someone that's suited to that position, and give someone else some work. So I think delegating faster a lot of tasks so that I could accelerate the business and focus on my real value add. I would have, it took me many years to delegate different parts of the business. At the beginning, I was doing everything. I was customer service. I was sales. I was accounting. Yeah.
Thinking on the mentor side, obviously, what's the best piece of advice that you've received that stays with you? And also, how important is mentorship for growth, if you like?
Yeah. Well, let me answer the second part first. So I think I was very arrogant on mentorship and personal development up to I'd say up to probably 4 years ago. It was during COVID. That's how I can remember it, but where I opened up to it. But I had this mindset where I was like, I found some success, and I never got any mentorship. I found some success, and I have no secret sauce that I figured out, and I thought I knew better than everyone. And I was like, I don't want to be skewed. I don't want to get mentored because I don't want to be thrown off track. And that was very arrogant. And I realized that as I saw, entrepreneurs and companies that were much, much bigger than us and moving to the size of the company that I'd like us to become, and solving the level of problems that I'd love us to solve in the similar scale of the mission we're trying to achieve. And I realized a pattern that, all of them had, or a lot of, these similar founders had paired up with someone who'd done it before and then learned from them. So I opened up to mentorship in 2020, started working with a coach, and then have been getting coaching for the last 4.5 years since then. And I very, very much believe in it. Like, really, really simple. And I think it just is that simple. To find someone that has done so figure out what you want. So figure out your goal, figure out someone who's achieved that goal, and then just learn what they did and get feedback and get a feedback loop where you can be held accountable. The best piece of advice, that's a good one. One that comes to mind, this is a really simple one. Just
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So this little thing. So a mentor a year ago. So I've always struggled with time management, trying to cram too many things into a small piece of time. So he recommended just buy, egg timer. So this is my Panda timer. It's $20 from Amazon. Yeah. And I just put the timer on. So if I dedicate an hour to doing a task, I put this on for an hour. I put it right in front of me, and this little Panda just holds me accountable to the time. And I'm not perfect yet, but I think I've made a huge improvement just having a little timer. So, because as an entrepreneur, really the only asset you really have is your time and what you do with your time. So yeah, just getting better at time management.
Canada's podcast is your gateway to success in the world of entrepreneurship. Start listening today. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
That's some really good insights there. The last 20 minutes or so. Let's have a bit more fun now.
Sure.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
I think in terms of my full-time focus, I would be doing some other type of business, and I have no idea what that would be.
That's okay.
I think that's, and maybe it's a good thing. Like part of that, what I was saying about focus, like I haven't even allowed myself to think about it. And that, like, the prospect of thinking about it is kind of exciting. Like, think about, okay, what else can I do? But yeah, I think I have no clue what I would do.
All right.
I mean, like, I have hobbies, but I don't think I'd do any of those as my full-time gig. So, yeah.
All right. What book are you currently reading, listening to? Don't care which, or what book would you recommend to the audience to read to improve their entrepreneurship?
So, one book that I read about a year ago from a mentor of mine, Dan Martell. So it's called Buy Back Your Time, and he's the one that gave me the recommendation on the Panda Timer. But yeah, it's basically a book, about literally buying back your time and delegating and managing your time to, focus on your highest value tasks and let your business grow. And it's also about goal setting and, really thinking deep into the future and setting a vision and then reverse engineering backwards to figure out how to achieve it. So that would be definitely a number one I'd recommend. So what I've read recently, I try to do at least a book a month, and I do all audiobooks. I did 2 last month. One that my wife recommended that I read called Siblings Without Rivalry, which is a parenting book, because I have 2 kids, a 4 and a 3-year-old. And it's really just about like managing like sibling relationships. So that was good. And that would be like the one out of the last 4 years, probably one of the only non-business books that I read, but it was great. I also read another, this isn't really like, it was called, it's more of a personality test, but it's actually a book that you read. It's called Strengths Finder 2.0. And it's basically an assessment, it's a assessment of your strengths. So it's a book that explains the theory behind it. And then you do a multiple choice test of about 50 questions. And it's interesting because most personality assessments look at your weaknesses and tell you what to improve on, or look at what bucket you fit into, personality type wise. This is one where it tells you your top 5 strengths. And the idea behind it is spending more of your time on your strengths. So capitalizing on your strengths rather than focusing on improving your weaknesses. So that was an interesting one. And this is the coach I'm working with right now is, it's kind of helping me mold that into the business of like, hey, how do I pair myself up with other team members that have kind of my yin to my yang, or vice versa, of complementary strengths that are my weaknesses and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Are you a morning or a night person? With 2 young kids, I can guess what the answer is.
Yeah. Yeah. Up until the last couple of years, I guess you could say I've naturally been a night person, like staying up till whatever, 1 a.m. About a year ago, I got more into fitness, and I have become a morning person because that's just the best way that my workout schedule fits into my life. So I go to the gym at about 5:45. I go to the gym, and then get home, hang out with the kids, then go to the office around 8:30. So yeah, I'd say I've become a morning person because it makes sense. And I actually like it. I think that, yeah, in hindsight, even if I didn't have that schedule, I would be do the morning thing.
If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be and why would you choose it?
You know what? The thing that comes to mind is actually based on the Strengths Finder assessment I just did, which is, so one of my top 5 strengths is achiever, which is basically this, burning desire to achieve every day, which is like, it's just something that's ingrained in me of like, I have to have a sense of achievement every day. Like I did something, or it just sticks with me. And whether I'm on holidays, whether I'm working, whether it's the weekend, like I have to accomplish something to feel fulfilled. So I think that would be one word that I think it kind of just sums up my mental state, or my pace is, I'm in a constant state of, it is, I think it's just, it's kind of gamifying or tricking myself. Like I have to do things to appease my nature, while at the same time balancing the rest of my life.
So what's keeping you up at night, excluding the kids again?
Yeah. Generally, I sleep pretty well. Although last night was like one of the worst nights of sleep I had in like probably the last 6 months. I don't know why. I just woke up at 4 a.m. Couldn't fall back asleep. But generally, I'm a pretty good sleeper. And I think over the last few years, especially, I think it's like really since COVID, I put a lot of effort into my calendar, into, balancing my personal state. So I do a couple of things for that. Like I meditate twice a week. I go to the gym 7 times a week. I spend enough time with friends, family, doing my hobbies that I feel kind of emotionally fulfilled. So balanced. And then the business side, try to, delegate and make sure, one, all my main priorities are taken care of, and that I'm doing what I need to do to feel like I'm achieving every day, but also that, the fires are being managed and delegated appropriately. So yeah, I mean, not really much keeps me up at night. Although if I'm working on a new project and I haven't really put enough thought to get over because I find when, I do a lot of the strategizing for the business. When we take on a new project or we work on something new, I'm the one that's kind of coming up with the game plan. And there's like almost 2 main parts of a new project. Is like, 1, figuring out the strategy, and then 2, the execution, figuring out the execution and just following through with the execution, which is kind of the easy part. So whenever I'm starting a new project and I haven't spent the time yet to figure out the strategy, it always just, I know that I need to, I know that I need to create the strategy, and it just in the back of my mind, like my brain's just bubbling up ideas until I sit down and sign off on it, basically. So that's one thing. I think that's kind of what happened last night.
Max, we've reached our timing here. It's been great meeting. It's some really, actually, I really enjoyed the interview. It's really been some interesting stuff in there. How can people get a hold of you online if they listen and really want to follow up on something?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not so planning to get more involved online and in social media. There's really only one channel that I'm involved in right now, which is LinkedIn. So yeah, if anyone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me right now.
Okay. Well, as I said, once again, great meeting you, and great to have you on Canada's podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate your time. It's been fun.
It was great meeting Max, and Thanks everyone for listening to Canada's podcast, where you meet the entrepreneurs in Canada that drive the economy. See you soon.